Continuing with Aristotle's De Anima, in the first part I got as far as Aristotle talking about touch, ending with men whose flesh is hard or being ill-endowed by nature or something anyway. I now come to taste. Only solutions can be tasted, Aristotle argued. The organ of taste must be something dry that can be liquefied. All sensation is via a medium. Democritus erred in supposing that one can see through a vacuum. We cannot see something placed directly on the eye or hear something on the eardrum. Neither can we smell something in the nostril unless we are breathing in. Aristotle was puzzled, however, to find that some bloodless animals which do not breathe nonetheless can smell. He suggests that over the intranasal organ of smell we have some sort of curtain analogous to the eyelid, which is raised only when we inhale. This the bloodless animals presumably lack. Even the sense of touch has its medium, to wit, the flesh, which is not itself the sense organ. Book 3 begins with a complicated proof that there could not be a sixth sense, nor a need for one. Aristotle continues with a discussion of the relation of the sensible object to the percipient sense. They are distinct, though their activity is one and the same. For example, the hearing and the soul are merged in one. Both must be found in that which has the faculty of hearing. Actual hearing and actual sounding appear and disappear from existence at one and the same moment. But Aristotle is no Berkeleyan, Bishop Berkeley that is, the subjective idealist, because for Aristotle, as potentialities, one of them may exist without the other. It is wrong to say that without sight there is no white or black. This description only applies to the actualities, not to the potentialities. There follows an obscure passage in which Aristotle seems to say that after all we do need, or indeed we have, a sixth sense, a common sense, which discriminates between sensations in different modalities. How else could we tell that sweet is different from white? This passage serves as a transition to the consideration of thinking and imagining, which occupies most of the rest of the book. Thinking is different from perceiving, a doctrine denied by some ancient philosophers. For one, perception does not admit of error, while thinking does. And two, all animals perceive, but very few think. Imagining is different from both, as being in the province of the will and not productive of emotion. Thinking is part imagination, part judgment. Imagination is, and I quote, that in virtue of which an image arises for us, end quote. It is not sensing. For one, it takes place in dreams. 2, It is not always present as sense is. 3. Imaginations are mostly false, while sensations are always true. 4. When we in fact see a man, we do not say that we imagine it to be a man. And 5. Visions appear to us even when our eyes are shut. Nor is imagination knowledge, or intelligence, or opinion, for brutes imagine but do not believe. Nevertheless, imagination is impossible without sensation. We do not imagine what we have never sensed. Imagination is a movement resulting from an actual exercise of a power of sense. Mind, and I quote again, mind is the part of the soul with which the soul knows and thinks. Thinking, though it is not perceiving, is sufficiently like perceiving to enable us to conclude that mind is capable of being affected by forms. And I quote, mind must be related to what is thinkable, as sense is to what is sensible. End quote. It follows that mind can have no nature, no combination of matter and form of its own, for unlike the senses, the matter of which restricts their potentialities, each to a certain range of possible sensations, mind is not limited in its objects. Hence, mind, and I quote, before it thinks is not actually any real thing. For this reason, it cannot reasonably be regarded as blended with the body. End quote. It is potentiality, not actually, or rather potentially, not actually, the place of forms. However, the mind so far described is only passive mind. In the extremely short, obscure and important 5th chapter, we learn that though passive mind is what it is by virtue of becoming all things, there is another which is what it is by virtue of making all things. This is a sort of positive state, like light. For in a sense, light makes potential colours into actual colours. This kind of mind, and I quote, is not at one time knowing and at another not. When mind is set free from its present conditions, it appears as just what it is and nothing more. This alone is immortal and eternal. We do not, however, remember its former activity because, while mind in this sense is impassible, mind as passive is destructible, and without it nothing thinks. End quote. The remainder of the book is, in the main, a sort of appendix in which topics previously treated are considered further. The great conception of the anima is that of the soul as the function of the body. On this account, it is the sole ancient treatise that is akin in its viewpoint to modern psychology and philosophy of mind. It is unfortunate that Aristotle's great authority, which sufficed to canonize so many errors for so long in other departments of science and philosophy, did not prevail in psychology. Aristotle, like the tragic heroes he describes in the Poetics, was not blameless in the matter. His flaw was his abandonment of his own doctrine in order to sing the ode to active mind. While the progress of many a science has consisted in throwing off Aristotelian shackles, the reverse is true in psychology, in which Aristotle's insight had to wait almost to our own day to be rediscovered.